Namaskar and greetings on this beautiful occasion of the inaugural day of the 3-day International Conference on Temple Architecture, Art and Sciences, or ICTAAS. My special thanks and applause to and for architect Dr. Tanisha Gupta, her team and her firm, the Samavaya Knowledge Enrichment Private Limited, for having invited me to this enriching gathering and to have successfully organized this magnum opus. It's okay, it's not presentation, but I'll run the slides. Fine. Sorry? Both from two different fields. And I have been, as I was discussing with Tanisha, that yes, both the papers have been very impressive. And I know, because archaeologists are not supposed to be very, you can say, licious about all these types of things. So I would be, maybe I am the dry bone in this conference, but nevertheless, I would try to present this angle of temple architecture. Temples, in fact, or the indigenous architecture of any kind of our country, I believe, goes all the way to the field of world architecture, wherein this has been a huge contribution by India to the field of world architecture, or to the field of world, you can say, cognizance of knowing what architecture is. Maybe we call it temple, maybe we call various other names of the local or the vernacular terms, but still, the very concept of temple is something which is a contribution to the world architecture by India. It is indeed a privilege to stand before all of you in this august gathering, convened under this banner. We meet here not only to deliberate on the art of temples, but also to immerse ourselves in the timeless confluence of architecture, cosmology, science, and spirituality that they embody. The cultural affiliation with the temples through the ages has been a virtual diorama of the societal reflections, ever changing but static at the basics. As they say in the Mayamata, Yata Pinde Tata Brahmande, Yata Brahmande Tata Pinde. Whatever is in the body is in the universe, and whatever is in the universe is in the body. The texts, the various types of texts which have discussed Vastu are Shastras, various Shastras. They tell us that the Devalaya or the Prasad or some other name, as I was telling, should be worshipped as a Purush. Now, what is the Purush? The Vastu Purush. What is the Purush? So now the question arises that the Purush, whosoever we are supposed to worship in the form of a temple, in the Rigved's 10th mandal, is understood to be someone which is the universe and which is beyond any type of form, which is formless and which is the impulse to manifestation. This profoundness is reflected in the architectural form of any temple. The Agni Purush mentions that the door of the temple is its mouth, the basic architecture, when the temple architecture began in context of the early historical India, that is from the Gupta period, as we put it, 4th century CE. The Agni Purush mentions that there are certain parts of the temple which always comprised or which always were understood to make up a temple. The later additions, when they were added, were definitely understandable through the Shastras, but the basic concept, even in parts of India, in the southern parts of India, being a field archaeologist, what we have seen is many a times the megalithic, what we call as the burial places, they weren't used as burials only, The dolmens were also used or are also used to keep their the so-called totemic deities and to worship them. So we understand that the manifestation of the temple might be of different kinds. It isn't essential that a temple should be comprising of all the places or everything, whatever we have, but the concept of linearity always remains. So what we have is, the Agni Puran mentions that the door of the temple is its mouth. The skandha or the shoulder of the Purush is the platform terminating in the trunk. The bhadra or the projections are the arms, and the jangha or the thighs is the main wall. We not only stop here in the exterior of it, we also understand that the Garbhagriha is a place where the entire manifestation or the entire concept is born, and the concept in the form of a god where the image is kept. Now that is why, as Dr. Tanisha discussed in the very first talk, that we understand that is why perhaps when we see a newborn baby, all of us are happy to see the baby, and we are so very glad that yes, the baby has come into the world. So are we as we come or stand in front in the Antaral portion and we worship and we see the Garbhagriha deity, and we are happy because that gives, that reflects, that is the manifestation of what we think the deity is like, whatever we think it to be. The Garbhagriha symbolizes the womb chamber, the innermost chamber of being, where the seed of divinity can be made to manifest. So that is what I was discussing. Every temple is thus a map of human existence under the cosmic order. Indian temple architecture is not a frozen relic of the past, it is a living testimony to the genius of our civilization. Here I have accumulated few of the beautiful temples that we as the Archaeological Survey of India have got the honors to look after. And apart from these temples, which I could not cover in my slides or in my very short presentation, and there are scores of other temples, there are scores of other such places, structures, which deserve far more attention, maybe more than these. So these are just for that sake. Like we begin our journey from Sanchi temple number 17. Indian temple architecture across millennia, from the rock-cut caves of Bhaja and Elephanta to the towering vimans of the Chola period, from the intricate Nagar spires of Khajuraho to the majestic Dravid Gopurams of Tamil Nadu. We witness an evolution that is at once artistic, scientific and metaphysical. The temple has always been more than stone and mortar. It is a diagram of the cosmos, a crystallization of sacred geometry, as we discussed, and an instrument for inner awakening. The science behind temple planning is deeply codified in the Shilpa Shastras and the Vastu Shastras. The temple plan begins with the Vastu Purush Mandal, a sacred geometric diagram, where the cosmos is envisioned as an ordered grid. The placement of the deity, the cardinal alignments, the sanctum, the Pradakshina path, all are determined with precision, ensuring harmony between man, nature and divinity. The very act of construction involves ritual precision, from choosing the site with geometric tests, to aligning the temple with celestial directions, to consecrating the images with Pran Pradishna, infusing them with life. Here comes India's huge and humongous role in fields of what we can loosely term as science of construction, science of abodes or places or homes, because Devalaya or the Prasad as it is called is the abode of the god. So when we or anyone is making an abode for the Supreme, so he or she is doing that with that authentication that there shouldn't be even nanomillimeter difference of any type of any measurement. That is perfection. That is near to perfection. astronomy and cosmology play the central role. Many temples are aligned to the solstices, equinoxes, or stellar settings. The sun's rays falling directly from the deity on special days at Konarak or at Sanctum of the Anantapadmanabha temple are not mere accidents. They are calculated harmonies of architecture with the heavens. Likewise, the nakshatras and the planetary positions guided both the timing of construction and the rituals thereafter. The Brihad Samhita says in a Sanskrit verse, which I am not quoting right now, just as all the waters fallen from the sky ultimately reach the ocean, so too every act of reverence to the gods ultimately reaches Keshava. Here Keshava is the manifestation of the universe. This is the beauty of all the texts, of all the literature, ancient literature, where manifestations have been beautifully explained in terms of human iconography or in terms of iconography, which is definitely a much later perception of human mind, because we tend to see the ultimate or the almighty in the form that we understand the best. So the concept of Vastupurush, so the concept of various other manifestations in forms of different gods and goddesses. Here lies the essence of temple building. It is not merely for a sect or a locality, but an offering to the universe. The temple is the axis mundi, a meeting point of heaven and earth, a reminder that human life is inseparable from the rhythms of the cosmos. In today's world, where technology dominates our landscapes, the Indian temples offer lessons in sustainable building, ecological consciousness, and holistic designing. Its construction was never divorced from the environment. It integrated natural materials, acoustic harmony, thermal balance, and above all, spiritual purpose. As we embark on the deliberations of this conference, may we look at the temple not as an artifact of the past, but as a perennial guide. Its architecture teaches us geometry and proportions, Talamana. Its art, the celebration of the divine and form. Its science, the harmonization of earth and sky, and its metaphysics, the awakening of consciousness. No venue could be more befitting for this than Khajuraho, the divine land where stone itself speaks the language of the cosmos. The temples of Khajuraho, built between the 9th and the 11th centuries under the Chandel dynasty, embody the height of Nagar style of architecture. These are not mere shrines, but cosmic diagrams where every sculpture, every projection, and every spire reflect the union of earthly and the celestial. The placement of the temples, aligned along cardinal directions and axes, and resonant with the astronomical rhythms, reveals the builder's deep understanding of geometry and cosmology. In their soaring shikharas, we see the mountain of transcendence. In their intricate iconography, the entire cycle of life, dharma, and liberation is inscribed. Khajuraho is thus not merely a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but also a living testimony to the dialogue between art, architecture, and infinite, a place where the divine and the cosmic converge in enduring harmony. Let us then recall the words of the Rigveda, Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam, Sada Pashyanti Suryada, Diviva Chakshur Adadam. So may this conference be that Chakshu, that collective eye through which we behold the grandeur, depth, and timeless relevance of Indian temple architecture in all its dimension, art, science, and spirit. Thank you.